But if you had the opportunity, right, to meet some of the Lakota people and learn some of the words, Lakota, the way of life, the Red Road, it's not a religion. It's a way of being.
I never followed. I never been a follower.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
Because the Native American, that warrior chief, he has to be able to get out there solo on his own and survive in the circle of life of Mother Earth.
Man, it's a nice day.
Beautiful day.
We gotta find a seat though. We're gonna go right here. All right. You know what I mean?
What you were saying there was the minute that we started talking, I was trying to figure out where do you begin to plug in at, you know, because you can't
Hey guys, welcome back to another video, guys. Welcome back, citizen. Hey, listen, today is today. Tomorrow gonna be another day, alright? So stop stressing. Enjoy life. Enjoy life, right? Enjoy life to the fullest, man. And we got today we got Mr. Dwight Johnson here. If y'all seen my last video about the horses, black cowgirls and cowboys of Delaware, he's the one. He's the leader. But also I didn't know he was part of the Native American tribe.
Yep. The Lakota Blackfoot.
Lakota Blackfoot tribe of where you from originally?
It's an interesting question. Originally I came from Retipica, Maryland, which is like 30 miles on the other side of Quantico, Maryland, called the Mud Country. What's common down in that area for Native Americans are Nanticoke, Cherokee, and all from the melting pot right of the Trail of Tears. But I want to try and give a history to you, right, about my personal family connection, you know, to Native American culture. Because we all have this blending thing, but like our culture as black men has been screwed and secured right in a mist that you can't follow. You get broken spots. And then there comes that history, right, with Native Americans, right, that was totally erased.
Yeah.
It is one thing to be exploited as a black man. It's another thing to be erased as a nation of people. Your language, your religion, your culture, your way of life just changed, even down to the name that you possess. It kind of starts with the black man in the colonial period of plantations and assuming the master's name. And then we got the antebellum and the changes that black people went through from 1863 on, and freedom, where we started claiming independence. The Native American has never been able to do that.
Yeah.
He's always had something given to him. If he wasn't fighting for it, it was given. Let me give you this great reservation down in Florida. Let me give you this great reservation out there in Wyoming.
Missouri, places like that.
And these are things, right, that are taking you out of your comfort zone, out of your hood, so to speak. That's what happened to the Native Americans. So I'm going to try and take you chronologically from me to my parents, right, and hopefully you'll be able to see, right, how easy it is to miss an important part of who you are. Long time ago, right, when the griots and the shadow people were talking, and these phrases that I'm using are from my culture. The griots are African American, the Napiers are the old ones, the shadow people that speak of my history. You didn't just get dropped on the boat.
No.
Them white people didn't just come and colonialize North America. They invaded somebody else's home. For over 500 years, there have been over 5,000, tribes in this continent.
In this continent, wow.
And you can't begin to separate the Cherokee, the Chippewa, the Paiute, the Kawa, the Blackfoot, the Lenape, all these different tribes. But prior to the white man coming, prior to the Native American African coming, we were a nation politically speaking to each other across miles and miles by drum and animals and seasons.
Yeah.
How did this get passed down to my mom? It's an interesting question, which takes us back to who the Blackfoot are.
See, all right, guys. Before I met you, I never knew they had a black Native American. Never. You my very first.
That just blows me away because it shows that we are even failing in a more important way, because as much as I know who I am, it's even more important that you know who you are. And we don't just sit here as people watching, passing us, right, seeing black men. We came from somewhere. We have a story to be told. We have a history that runs in our blood, which takes us to the point. There were 4 tribes, right, creating the Blackfoot, what's known as the Blackfoot Lakota today. They were the Comanche, the Siksika, what is known as the Blood People, and the North American Lakota, Blackfoot. Those tribes split right along the period when the British came, when the Trail of Tears became prevalent. And I want to mention, right, Wounded Knee, because the fact we don't realize that these 4 tribes, just like black people today, split in different facets, different beliefs, different religion. Indians at the time, and Native Americans and Blackfoot tribe in particular, right, when they split, there had to be a hierarchy. There had to be something to make them distinct. So what made them distinct was education. It was the power to hold on to the language, the power, right, to teach beyond yourself. My grandfather, which was my mother's father, was a man that never spoke English. He spoke by his hands, the callus on his hands, right, and the sweat of his brow, and the work ethics. But when he spoke, I could see this woman, this strong woman, my mother, change. It was instantaneous. It was immediate. There was also this thing in my entire life, from the time I can remember, right, of him being a leader within the family, but he was never in charge.
So the female run the
yeah, it was very strange, because as a child I don't remember my father making many decisions. I remember my father discussing every decision. Wow. My mother was very internally decisive. My grandfather, right, he scared me. I mean, one, because I was a black Chickasaw on a reservation. My mom had crossed the barrier. You got to figure, back in the 1920s and the 1930s, right, during the migration of black people from the South, there was a lot of blending that went on.
A lot of Native American blacks blending with the African American.
Absolutely, as well as with the colonists.
Wow.
Because the colonists had the money. And remember the law, the federal government said in 1887, right, when this was happening, right, you will move. You didn't have a choice. And if you stayed on the good graces of whatever the plantation owner or the landowner or the money man said. That money man was a white man, a colonist. He was a new generation. He was a new internet, you know. And in this particular case, right, Native Americans as well as freed black slaves had to decide. You're going to stay or go. What are you going to do? There came sharecroppers. There came, you know, all kinds of things that went on. You know what I mean? From 1797 into the early 1800s and 1860, after the blacks were freed, you could really see the change that it forced on African Americans to blend. Now, what happened to the white side? Let's talk about that for a minute, because a lot of white people are saying today that you've got Native American in you. Hi, my brother. I want to say hi to you, because chances are you're right. You can't keep blending, right, when you start sticking people and forcing people to live in one sector. When you start controlling lives, you don't get to pick and choose. Yeah. And thereby being, how can you establish the Spanish, the Mexicans, the degradation of color? Color is no longer a dictator as to, you know, who and what you are.
Yeah.
You know,
more nationalistic.
Absolutely. Right? I'm just reaching deeper into the surface that white man says, okay, well, we're black sitting here. If you stop long enough to hear the conversation, you'll hear less black and more about people. And then more about another culture altogether. We're delving into something, right, that took me 14 years of my life to have embedded into me. I joined the Marine Corps when I was 15 years old, and my life left the reservation.
All right, you said what, 14 years you joined the military, right?
Yes.
Was that a law back then? Like, because now you gotta be at least 18, 17, 18 to actually make that kind of decision. Well, what was it back then?
To make that type of decision at that time, right, is the guy, right, that says, you know, I listen to the own beat of my drum. The other fact, right, was that from 4 years of age into 14, I was very independent. I was taught to survive in the woods, in the mud creek of Wetumpka, Maryland. I knew how to fish, catch catfish, you know, otters, ducks, you know, wild turkey. I actually knew how to do that. Could I live peacefully? I did. When I came to Lewis, Delaware, in the early 60s, I didn't understand the baseball games and the basketball and the high school thing. I mean, I wasn't even accustomed to sitting in the chair.
Oh, wow.
I was more accustomed to being out in the woods listening. And for God's sake, right, in the black community of Lewis, I've never been around kids my age. At that time, I was 9 to 10 years old. I never been around kids, right, that had to be told twice, shut up. Because
it's a different rule in the reservation.
Different rule. The culture was never to be heard.
Oh, wow.
You can be seen, but never to be heard, because you can't catch food, you can't track animals, you can't be around the horses, you can't be around the children. You know, there's too many things that have to be mastered as a child on a reservation in silence. And it gave me the chance to pay attention to my mother and father's, and my mother and her father's relationship, that tribal thing that I missed when I got to Lewis. And even now, looking back on it, when I went to the Marine Corps at 15, the military took control of that aspect.
Oh, wow.
You know, it kept it structured to the point where I knew where the power was circling. And when I make the circle with my hand, I want to make mention of this because it's very important into this thing. When I talked about the 4 tribes, we all became something, and though there's only 5,000 of us speaking the native tongue, and even
to this
less
day?
To this day,
Oh, wow.
which is out of a nation of people, that's not unreal, because we live in a society where power is killing off something. Now we're talking about survival and how we survive, and those 5 tribes, they had to learn to join together. Now I want to talk a little bit about how this hooks up to the American idea of what Native Americans are. Blackfoot definitely was a buffalo country. That's where the name comes from. It's the black fur. It's the sole of the leather, right, which appears very black on the foot, right, when you make the moccasins. So that's what they were called. Another feature is because they stayed in these moccasins so long, right, that the oil on the denture, right, came right through into their toes, right. And so most of us have very dark toenails.
Wow.
Thereby just, you know, one of those old cliches about where the Blackfoot name came from. But again, attached to the region that they came from. Now, Blackfoot originated in the Ontario area. Think borderline between Canada and the United States. From Montana to New York. There were, as I spoke earlier about it having 5,000 different tribes. Along that eastern seaboard were a number of tribes, right, that made their living off of their environment. The Great Lakes are known for a great fishing area. Maine, you name it. Everything that was born before, you know, Christopher Columbus, Mirage, that was Native American. The Iowa, the Kiowa, the Blackfoot. When they started to war, there was a change that went on. And the Blackfoot people not being a powerful tribe, because there are many tribes that were much more strength-wise in numbers, more powerful than the Blackfoot. Yes, and because we were able to, because we were splitting among ourselves with the cultures, right, that was happening, we fell to the Iroquois, and the Iroquois and the Kiowa went to war with the Lenape. The Lenape, right, being one of the Indians, right, that came from the eastern shoreboard, right, we were known as Nomad Indians.
Nomad. Yeah. I heard that word before.
Yeah, which simply meant that we went with the flow of things, right, but we brought the best of us that we could bring. And because we were not a very strong tribe, we had to have another feature. So what we did was we went from fishing tribe to a land tribe, a Plains Indian tribe. This brought us again to the eastern shore, the lower proximities, Missouri, Louisiana, and so forth. That nomad culture was very spiritually connected because we bought some of the things, right, for an Indian to change, for a Native American to change from a sea-bearing, that's your livelihood. You're going to eat squid, you're going to eat fish, you're going to eat crab, you're going to eat everything coming out the water. Then all of a sudden you go from water to land. That is a generational change of diet, of health, and everything. Not only did we do that as a people and as a tribe, we did that as a nation and culture.
Wow.
The Blackfoot became known as a Plains Indian, which is really part of the problem, right, with tracing Blackfoot culture, is you get confused between where he came from and where he wind up being. Being a nomad, it even gets even further dispersed. As it is with black men, right? How do you track somebody, right, that gets interrupted in the flow of the Atlantic seacoast? Once you get here to the colonies, right, all of a sudden, right, there's a big gap. You know you started somewhere, but what the hell went on here? The same thing happened with the Native Americans. A little bit different, but the way we got around that was the same way, right, that the cowboy stories got started. Let me tell you, we've been exploited many, many years. And this is where I'm going to really get deeper into my family, because I don't want to speak for the nation.
No.
You know, the nations consist of people, right, that have different values, different beliefs, different ceremonies that hold very dear. I will tell you, Dover, Delaware now, during Native American Month, right, and Millsboro, Delaware on Route 24, there's a Nation of the Drums, and that's where every Native American registry can come together, right, in a song and dance and learn of the history.
Do they have a reservation in Delaware?
Yes.
I heard, but somebody told me they also passed a law for a new reservation. Is that true?
Yes.
Oh wow. So what tribe is that?
That's the Napi and Nanticoke Indians.
Wow.
And I urge you, right, to really contact Chief Clark.
I'm gonna go through you, man.
Yeah, because it is something that is so scarcely being pushed off the cliff of history, is being held on to a very small group of their descendants. Oh, wow. And we're clawing. This is how I failed, and I feel as a shaman that I failed because of the fact here you sit before me as a black man, not knowing that all the things that our people have went through, there is another story that is certainly so much ingrained in you, and you to be oblivious of it, because that means somebody won the war.
Oh, wow.
That means somebody won that battle in a way in your family, and that is different. I don't watch a cowboy movie and ever get excited. There are too many deviations, and the simplicity of what just the little bit that I know about my people. You couldn't ask for more giving people. That circle of life is very real. Death doesn't come just like life isn't given. It's a blessing in both records at the beginning. I never felt like we were poor on the reservation. Never, not, I'm telling you, not once. Money, clothes, food, things to do, I never felt poor at all. In religious feedings, I never felt poor at all. But as soon as I got to Lewis, all of a sudden, right, people that didn't have a television or icebox, people that didn't have radio, people that didn't have shoes, there was, at that time, we couldn't go to school with the white people, so I mean, fortunately you didn't have school, you had church.
Oh, wow.
And we're talking late 50s, early 60s here.
Well, that's around the time of the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
First kick off.
And people today, just like here in Dover, you think you know it all. There was a war long before you parted your little butt to sit here and listen to me.
Wow.
There's much more going on, and they were just as passionate as I am about my people. Or there were black people that, were just as passionate in the early 60s, in the late 50s. And here we sit as a product of that. To have somebody say, oh shit, you lost. And don't get mad. Figure out how to figure out how it happened. Because that is the thing that's going to happen 1,000 times over, child by child by child. And the story's being told class by class by class. Get a degree and get dumb like me, and disregard this history. When Manapis talk about when the shadow people, my ancestors, talk about yesterday, it is not just a myth. It's also about preparing the young warrior for the battle that he is going to face. And I don't speak of violence. I speak about the new technology, the new sociology that comes about how we deal with one another, how we perceive a conversation, how we even address the competition that's coming toward us as a people. I speak on the subject of Native Americans, right, but this goes a lot deeper than that and comes back to the circle. You kind of like have to be people. But since I've been a destroyed people, and we're sitting here as black men fighting to survive, where do we go and what do we learn? My family, my mother, my grandfather, her father, taught me this belief. At 15 years old, when I joined the Marine Corps, the idea of somebody telling me to listen, I didn't need that story. I grew up with it.
You grew up with it.
I grew up with it. In Vietnam, it was one of the most silent wars, right, that I think in my lifetime that I've seen take place, and I've been in many wars. Vietnam, you had to learn to be quiet. And at 15 years old, I knew how to do that. A long story short, 3 years deployment right in Vietnam, I got my rewards and I've got my disappointments. I learned that I wasn't as good as I was, but I was blessed for the lessons that my parents gave me. Yes, sir, and yes, ma'am was never a big issue for me. But if a man told me something, I expected him to do it all. At 15, you don't go into the Marine Corps and last of all go to Vietnam with them New York boys and Philadelphia boys and Chicago boys and shit and tell them anything.
Do a lot of Native American from the reservation actually join the army, or just?
That's interesting that you say that. When I joined the Marine Corps, what I had was a christening certificate. That's where they sprinkle a little water over a baby's head, you know, give you the little blessing. And I had 1 year junior high school.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Didn't have a birth certificate. But I had gold hair on my arms, right? And I was talking to this man like he was talking to an adult instead of a 15-year-old boy. My mama was standing right there. And the moment she said the reservation, he kind of pretty much knew that he had to lean heavily on what mom said.
Yeah.
And when it came time for the testing, well, I was up to speed because even back in that day on the Native American reservation, you had to be, being good at something wasn't enough.
Wow.
You had to be better than good. The same passion I had for horses, I had to have that same passion about talking to the white man. Like there are two languages that we have. You know, it's the way we talk to each other. You know, when we're kicking it, and then when we're conversating with the white man, you got to be much more proper. Slow it down a little bit. Those are two languages, and we don't realize it until we get around a white man and he's listening. You don't understand that he's always listening. Having said all of that, I was never questioned about how I got into the Marine Corps. It was about how I performed in the Marine Corps. Quick story, my twin brother died at 14, and
in the force or like on the reservation or
on the reservation?
On the reservation.
He died at 14, and I stopped speaking for a whole year, and Mom pretty much decided, well, you know, you'll not do this in front of me. Stand up, and one Monday morning she took me to Salisbury recruiting station, and 2 days later I was in the Marine Corps boot camp.
Alright, so at that age, right, was it legal for the people from the reservation, or was it legal, questionable, to be a 15-year-old joining the army?
You really must understand what a reservation is.
I don't understand. Yeah.
So let's back it up a little bit. An Indian reservation is designated, we're talking about land, not people.
Alright.
You know, it's like you get an acre of land and you put a couple goats on it.
Yeah.
You own the land. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In this case, the land is owned by the government. You own the goats.
So the reservation right now owned by the government?
It's by the government.
Oh, wow.
You own the goats. So for every child that is born on the reservation, though they said they gave the land to us, you can't give Mother Earth to somebody. You can't. It's like giving God.
Yeah.
You know, you own it all. So when they say reservation, they split you just like livestock. When you leave the reservation, you're a regular American. When you're on that reservation, you're a member of the tribe. In this particular case, we're talking about the Lakota, the Nanticoke Indian. So you hear me say a few moments ago, I didn't want to speak for the nation. I want to speak for me as an individual.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
when you're speaking for the nation, that is where they rest. Records, the world's records and knowledge about Native Americans and Nanticoke Indians rest on this reservation, connected with the land. The minute that Indian child leaves that land, he's a new entity.
So
He might as well be a migrant.
Oh, wow.
Really. Because he'll not have an education. He'll not have a medical record. He'll not have a shot record. The moment I entered into the Marine Corps, I got all of that instantaneously. You understand that? As well as citizenship in regards to voting.
Or if you're on the reservation, you cannot vote?
Oh, yeah, you can vote.
Oh.
But, you know, honestly, right, if I took everything for you, then fuck would I care about your vote? Excuse me. Yeah, at the end of the day, we have to have that same question, that same conversation. But I'm just speaking from the mindset of a Native American, right? I don't care to vote in your fictitious diplomacy because you're not right. You got my people trapped here. You're feeding us alcohol. You're feeding us drugs. You're pulling our resources from out the land. If it's convenient for you to run a pipeline through babies and families and communities, then you do so. It's only relevant when it's relevant to you. So the thing of me coming off the reservation, searching for a better life, you said to me earlier, said I always had my own way of doing things, my own independence.
Yeah, I always been my own. Been a leader in my own right.
Absolutely.
I never follow. I never been a follower.
And that's very important.
Yeah.
Because a Native American, that warrior creed, he has to be able to get out there solo on his own and survive in the circle of life of Mother Earth. With every creature, including that white man, including that black slave, including all the nations of all the tribes, he has to work within that universal circle. Now, it's okay when you know who's in the circle with you and they're on the same page.
Same page.
But then you start getting these individuals that start saying, right, the shadow dance is a thing about creatures instead of being about the harvest of corn. You get these things saying like Indians eat people instead of realizing, right, that Indians chew and ate the afterbirth.
What you mean? What you mean the afterbirth?
It was a part of the woman maidenhood, afterbirth of children, right? It was cooked up into dietary because it was another form of meat and another form of spirit.
These like a spiritual thing.
Yeah, these are things, right, that the colonists made into savagery. They're cannibals, you know. There was nobody more violent and more vicious than these people. But in the circle of the universe, this is how we related with each other. Well, Native Americans had a culture that literally, I didn't have to speak your tongue. I didn't have to know your ceremony dance. I knew that your children were raised a certain way. I knew that you would respect the Napiers and the Shadow Warriors and the old ones. I knew that you would die to feed yourself and the people around you that helped you get to the next day. Because this is the way of a tribe. And 5,000 tribes, everybody felt the same. It was very foreign to me to leave the reservation and get into the Marine Corps and find that all these different personalities weren't the same. They talk different. Things that got them excited. I was judged.
Because you're not used to the...
Right. And then there was this one thing, this one little thread that it changed my way of thinking about boot camp all the way up through Vietnam and a prisoner of war in Vietnam.
Apart from the military, right? What was the main reason that you left the reservation? Do you try to integrate into the society outside?
Oh yeah. I'm a product of 1960, 59, and 60. The DuPont program where he put in 80 schools around the state
of Delaware.
Yeah. And in that, came the Indian reservations, the Indian schools, and you only had to get an 8th grade education.
That's it.
That's it. You know, I mean, because the rest of the time you was out on the field working the farm. You know, it was a very colonial and agricultural state, but there was no life for a independent Native American. I was the guy, right, riding around on horses, right, when white people were making money with horses at Georgetown and at Dagsboro and Ocean City. I was that little black boy, like, yeah, you can ride. I didn't just ride. I rode better than a lot of them, but black people didn't ride in races. People like George Teach, we were doing picking stalls and cooling down horses. Well, white people started getting to know me in Wycomico County, and now I was making as much money as my grandfather from riding people's crazy horses. But there was no future in that. There was nothing outside the reservation. They were still telling me who I could ride, what I could ride, how long I could ride, you know, and I was better than that, you know, and
that's what make you step out.
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to go elsewhere, and my mom was getting antsy about the reservation. When my twin brother died, I didn't have a cohort. I didn't have a buddy to run around with, and I didn't make friends easily. So when I joined the Marine Corps, I definitely was looking for something, but the thing that I was looking for wasn't what I found. The thing that I found racism. The whole time that my grandfather, right, raised me from a child, right, I knew he didn't like me because I was black skinned. I was different. But I was the grandchild, right, that learned the things that he loved the most.
So, is your parents, like, are your mama
full-blooded Indian?
Full-blooded Indian, and your dad was?
Black.
African American?
Yeah. West Virginia.
West Virginia?
Yeah.
I've been to West Virginia. I lived down there for 2 years.
Let me tell you, they're strange people, brother. I'm just telling you what I know. My wife is from West Virginia.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're different out there.
They different, brother. They different. But it brought me down to the fact, right, that in the Marine Corps at that time, when I went into the Marine Corps, they were very racist.
Wow.
And I was very humble, you know. I never had been in a Native American culture. You don't need to be told who you are. When you're a child, you know you're a child. You act like a child. When you are a warrior of the tribe or a man in fatherhood, then you know that you're a man and father. You act accordingly. You don't leave and jump states.
Yeah.
You don't. You take a day out of your day, right, to make it third day. You become second. You learn to share and humble yourself. And when you're Nape, when you're one of the old ones, you remember the beginning, and you feed on passing this thing off. It's not about dying that you worry about. It's about this older stage of living. Let me drop this little tidbit off, and then watch it grow, see it change. When an old man looks back and learns from the young man, right, that something was heard, and then the final days of dying in Vietnam, right, when I spent 2 years in Vietnam, and all of a sudden, right, I was about ready to rotate, coming back to the world, and I got captured. And 2.5 years of my life.
Were you a prisoner on war?
Yes.
Oh, wow. And you're pretty young, too.
I started young.
Yeah, you started young.
But the lessons taught on that reservation, the lessons taught in Lewis, Delaware, and the lessons taught in this state taught me many things about the failures of people, but more important about the failures of myself, because as a POW I learned, right, that it is important not to live for just yourself, because self is worthless. It's the memory of one, it's the teachings of another, it's the compassion and strength that you can inspire to another. I was 15 years old. What made me so special? I didn't think so. Surviving? I think black people have to learn, young black people have to learn to survive in this skin right that I've lived in for the last 6 to 8 years. And you don't have time. You couldn't be in a more serious war. Your fuck-ups, your misunderstandings, educate oneself, communicate with one another. It is a thing in Native American culture where they say, come to the drum circle. It's amazing that you can have so many people around the drum, but only one person is beating and talking at the time. to settle down and relax and believe that every man has something to say and every ear has something to hear. If you fail this, then there are no more shadow people. There is no more future. There's only the past and what I'm telling you right now, what you're not getting. If you shut it off, if you're chasing a thug dream, in my case, I was chasing a war hero. You couldn't tell me I wasn't coming back to Vietnam. Oh yeah.
You fought the whole time?
Oh, yeah.
How long you spent at POW?
2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
2.5 years.
And you had no fear? You knew you were coming home the whole time?
I knew I was coming home. I knew I was coming home and or die. The beginning was back here.
That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, the beginning was back here.
Wow.
I could always see, and this is very true, I could always see me riding on the beach.
Hoping,
yeah, I could be tied up in the most configurated fashions. And always feel that horse underneath me. And as the pain disappeared and the memory disappears, I came home. And for 2.5 years, I saw men die. I saw grown men break. And I don't know what made me any special than anybody else, but when you're in a rough spot and you're trying to survive the valleys, there's very little success at looking down. You know, my next step, my next reach has got to be pure. I'm like that about horses, and I could dream about them. I used to dream about my mother and the horrible way she was treated when she came to Rehoboth, the way she was treated in the black community by being Indian, the way I was treated in boot camp because I was so quiet. Must have been a gay boy, you know, even back then. But I was taught to be seen, not heard.
Wow. That's something big.
And in combat and as a POW, you want to sneak so far in the back of that cell that they don't come snatch your legs, because it's not going to be something pleasant. For 2.5 years, I endured a lot. Restriction, road restriction, drowning, electrocution, rape, beatings, buried
Up
alive.
in Vienna, everything they.
Oh, it was really just a mind game. They didn't want to kill you.
They just want to torture you.
They just want to make you think for a moment that the day was the last day.
Oh, wow.
The exciting part was waking you up so you realize you had to go through it again tomorrow. I was different. I was different because, like I said, my culture had taught me, right, that there's no end. If every day I was to die, then I had to concentrate on the beginning. I'm Lakota.
All right. You put your life on the line for this nation, right?
Yes.
So did you do that
For this country?
Yeah, or you did it for the reservation people?
Yeah, I was spoiled as shit, man. I have to tell you, I was trying to get out that reservation. I had a plan. And the military was
the easy way out.
Yeah, it was at the time, you have to remember, during the 60s, and from 63 to 65, there was a big influx of depression. Economically, people of color was catching hell, and people on the reservation was catching even more hell. Do you remember the time of Salvation surplus food?
Surplus food? Nah, I don't think
That's all right, don't feel bad. You know how welfare people get a check?
Yeah.
There used to be a time, right, that once a month, or maybe twice a month, you would get what was called surplus government food. And you get a whole box full of shit, man. You get bologna, you get cheese, you get syrup, you get beef, you get butter, you get green beans.
You get everything.
Yeah, you get it going on.
A lot of protein.
And shit, right. For the month. You get it twice a month.
Yeah.
Those old 1944 C-rats were passed out to among the impoverished people of color. And Native Americans used to get that twice a month. And black people used to get it about 3 times. like that great big block of cheese. It was really good. But the point I'm trying to make is that was all that you had.
For the whole
You probably didn't have a job.
Wow.
You might have made $15 a day working on some white man's farm if you could drive a tractor or if you could count. You know what I mean? Because you got to remember, education level was a very important factor there. Then there was the other thing that was going on with black people. We were making babies at the ass. Huh? It's what we do.
Yeah.
It's what we do. And on Saturday night in Lower Delaware, people, in Lower Delaware, Friday night was a prep for killing somebody on Saturday so that you could rest on Sunday or get out of jail and be back on Monday in the field. That's real talk. It's real talk. There are many unsolved murders within the Kent County, Newcastle, Wilmington area till this day that people can speak on, say, I was there for that, and never know that they had evidence of a real issue because the fact you were told, watch what you talk about, spook. You know, I'll sell you down the river. And back in the day, that meant that you went below Merle. You know what I mean? So the early 60s was a rough time, and there was no great reward for a young black man that had heart. No, I didn't go for the patriotism of this country. I looked for the survival of my family and of my people.
Yeah.
My mom had this, once my twin brother died, she was like, I don't want you to die here. And I know where I'm sending you was tough, but to be in hindsight, I was ready.
You ready?
I went through the Marine Corps basic training, right? Became honor grad. I joined Special Recon my second year in the Marine Corps, right? And was a Lance Corporal by the time I went to Vietnam.
You did all that before the age of 20.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. By the
crazy.
By the time I got to Vietnam, and there are a lot of people that didn't realize that I was just 16 years old. You know, I mean, I was barking at guys from Philadelphia and New York and Chicago and shit, right? Little did they know, besides the stripes on my shoulder, that's all the backbone I had. You know what I'm saying? I was disciplined now, you know. If there was a job to be done or I told you something, what really made me stand out as an NCO was that Native American culture that says, if I told you I was going to break that horse and work with that horse, I wouldn't leave until he was broke. And I would take every step to get there. If I told a man, right, that I wanted his best, 16-year-old boys don't tell grown Marines how to be their best. But 16-year-old Native Americans do tell black older men how to live with me because I didn't have any give and shake. In my mind, right, if I gave you my word, then count on that. If you wanted to be corporal or you wanted to be sergeant, then yeah, I'll make you sergeant. Just don't be stupid. Be here when I turn around and put it on your shoulder. Or if I told a man that he was going to have leave, or if I told a man, right, that he would be there when his child was born, I made that happen, even if it meant I had to go stand his duty. Those were things that didn't matter. I can remember, because I never had no money.
You had no money?
Never had no money. So when I still got in the Marine Corps, right, and got to be a corporal and stuff, right, guys give me a sad sob story about they didn't have no money and stuff like So I always go see Corporal Johnson, you know what I mean? But when combat time came, they also knew, right, that I was just as serious. Because in the Native American culture, if you take care of one, you take care of many. And you keep passing it on. America hasn't earned that from me. What has earned that for me is the fact, right, that we've been civilized and we've been blended. What was normally 4 tribes now is 1.
American, nationalized.
Yeah, and we're really struggling to interlace. It frightens me when I meet people of color that don't know how deep the blood runs. Because forever and a day, be you Filipino, be you Korean, Japanese, Vietnamese, Thai, whatever you want to put on it. If you ever fall outside of the shade of the Anglo Saxon, right, you will be looked at as different because, as you said a moment ago, we were security.
The Anglo Saxon is the queen and king of England.
Yes.
They ruled that land.
Yes.
They actually came from the Roman Empire. A lot of people don't know that.
Don't know that.
They wasn't the original of England.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that.
Incest. things are going on.
Yeah, they came from.
Things are going
They
on.
came from
Yeah.
But now, the way society look like now, tribalism seems second to nationalism. Now more people in society, I mean the whole world, are more nationalism.
Yes.
But tribalism, I feel like it can be intertrade. Like people can corrupt a certain tribe to go against a certain tribe, and empower a certain tribe to
Even that has been distorted to a great extent, because you have to understand the number of things. Like, I'm trying to remember a time, right, when my grandfather or my mother spoke about an old conflict. I remember distinctly about the Wounded Knee thing. I mean, because that was fascinating when I came home talking about, George Custer and shit. My mom and grandpa just lit the fuck up. But there was a conflict among two tribes. I want to say that it was don't quote me on this one. I want to say that it was the Apache and the Cherokee. And there was a dance, a ceremony that the Cherokee really truly believed in. And it was called the Spirit Dance. And the Spirit Dance was about harvesting of the corn, the new foliage coming up in revelation of the soil, the plant rotation. And the ceremony was to grant the good growth of corn, which was a big ingredient to our diet, and certainly the Cherokee. They were big at the time on this particular reservation, I have to call the name, in colored beads, through the corn. Anyway, an outbreak happens because one of the police officers of the reservation, who is the opposing tribesman, didn't want the ceremony to go on. The ceremony was it's not changing the weather, but you got to figure, right, in the late 1800s, these are all that these people have. You took my land, you brought me here, and just let me have my little prayer, And when this went on, it started a war among the two tribes. The Cherokee took prisoners in this on the reservation war. Now, under normal circumstances, right, and how did you say it? Nationalism, the prisoner of war. When Cherokee took these people, they blended them right into the tribe. The same people that were warned about the ceremony are now performing this ceremony. The period of time lasted 75 years. 75 years of warning. 75 years? Come on.
Yeah, nationalism.
That's pretty serious.
Yeah, nationalism is pretty powerful now and then.
Very much so. Especially if it becomes the norm.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time. I mean, my wife tells me all the time, right, that I was born in the wrong age. I think so. Sometimes I long for a time that my mother can never get back to me. Like I said, I lost my father in January, my mom in '89, my grandfather right in '68. There's been a long line of people leaving me in the nation, right, but it left me with this serious responsibility. That white man will not tell you your history. I don't care how sweet, I don't care how humble he approaches you. He will not tell you what he doesn't know, because ignorance is not one of the things that he embellishes.
On the reservation, right, you'll have your own school, right? Do you allowed to pick your own curriculum and to train and pass down culture?
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
You know what my mama did?
What?
My mama did hair. People would come all the way from Snow Hill, Maryland, Delaware, all the way to 30 miles on the other side of Quantico in Salisbury, Maryland, to have her do black people's hair. Yeah. My grandfather was an adamant Lakota horseman. he could do things with mules that just kept the white man's tractor at bay. I don't need your tractor. My grandfather was around before the Amish was down here.
Before the Amish was
Yeah, before the Amish was here, Grandpa was on. And he could plow the fuck out of the field. And then when he got old or got drunk, he started renting me up, because by that time, your answer to the question is that I aspired to be a better Blackfoot than my grandfather. He was the meanest man I know, the strongest man I know, the most protected man I know. But he could protect against progression. Society was changing. He couldn't stop his daughter from being infatuated by black men. He couldn't explain why I had all the skills of a Lakota Indian, but all the looks of a black man. You know,
I guess racism everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's everywhere, man.
And that's exactly what I was meaning when I said I joined the Marine Corps and I found that thread of racism.
Yeah.
It was the one thing that made me realize that was different in the Native American culture.
Mm-hmm.
We are not the sum total of one, but of many. And in saying that, every white person that, be it by mistake or by myth, that says, I think I've got some Indian in me, chances are.
You probably do.
Probably do. But even more frightening is, chances are, you probably got some black in you too.
Everybody.
You know what I'm saying? I don't, you know, and it comes from both ways.
Yeah.
Because, as I said to you earlier, most of the Native American authority was by women.
Yeah.
So.
Now you told me that.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the number of Native American women that would actually submit or stay with a white man during the 1877 Trail of Tears. You know, these are serious economical family issues. Just like Donald Trump and Biden today, this was a serious issue that we had to decide right now. God damn it, right now.
Yeah.
They said you were free, nigga. You better get moving. Are you staying or going? In or out?
Yeah.
You know. So it's like right then, right there. And Native Americans had that same problem. Even more so because we were a bonded society that existed in a very much tribal way. It was very rare to find somebody like me and my mom that thought outside of being independent, because even from the 1920s and 1930s, when she had to decide to leave the reservation, that was pretty ballsy.
Wow.
And for me to do it, it's pretty ballsy. But even before me, I'm very proud of my culture, and even more proud of the fact that these little tidbits were left for me to trace.
Like Amish, right? I seen a couple TV shows about the Amish culture, and I guess when a kid reaches a certain age, they're allowed to go into society, to experience society. If they like it, they stay. If they don't, they come back. It's the same thing with the reservation for the young people.
Yeah, I'm going to try and explain this to you, because it varies a little different. Do you remember your first wet dream?
I don't think I remember that.
Dover, Delaware, you might want to put the kids out by now. Here it is. In a Native American reservation situation, what I found was I didn't know when puberty started. I knew when my body changed. I remember my sister catching the moon month. The moon month is a period. It is the time, right, when she's not asked to work for that period of bleeding. She's not asked to perform duties. And it's called the moon month. She can be as evil as she wants to be, but she's always in charge. That was prevalent. But there came that time, probably around 11 and 12, right, when I had to talk about the smell that came up right during hunting season. When you're hunkered down in a duck blind, things get hot. The mud comes up and this young 29-year-old. So here's the deal. The mud comes up and bakes up on you. Yeah. And the smell is kind of hidden right from the otters, because they've got keen sense of smell and even greater, right, vibrations. When you get a wet dream or a steady buildup of, because on the reservation, first of all, we didn't have water until I guess 263, 62, 63 running water.
Like coming to the house?
Yeah, coming to the house. Oh, it didn't come to the house. It had to go to the pump, out to the river.
Yeah, go to the river.
Yeah. But it wasn't a thing of like, at that time, infantago. Other little diseases that happen with tribal when you're living in a community thing. You know, you get sores and stuff like that, mosquito bites, etc. But getting back to the wet dreams, your body as a teenager develops a certain smell. A smell, right, that my grandpa could smell it.
You know you better be a teenager.
I can smell it. I smelled it on my kids. I smelled it on my daughter when I came back from Vietnam. Call it a raunchiness. Call it a grown smell. You see, Dover, you have smelt it, and I didn't say funk. It's a difference. It's a breath in the morning. It's a natural odor. Have you ever been around somebody, right, and they had their own scent? I didn't say you stank. I just said, you know, you got your own scent. Maybe it's the cologne or the soap or the amount of sweat that's in your body, whatever it is. Yeah. I happen to be one of those profuse sweaters, but my grandpa told me, right, the day of my wet dream, my grandfather told me that I'd had it. I didn't even know what he was telling me.
That's crazy.
I immediately went home and told my mom about it, because normally if I ruined the hunt, it meant that somebody didn't eat, and I usually got an ass whipping or something of that nature. When I told her about it, right, my mom got really interested in it, and we started to have much more serious conversations. I was told not to be in the presence of white females when I was riding. I was told not to let someone see my photography erect, standing up hard. Back in that time, it was a breeze. But, you know, to be conscious of this thing.
Yeah. Going to adulthood now, so you gotta learn these.
I think my mother knew that I was growing out of the reservation. I was making as much as Grandpa, and I was good with the horses. And with, you know, I was becoming known. And as I got educated, you asked about the education system within the tribe. It was more family oriented. If your parents sold muskrat or ducks, that's what you did.
Oh, wow.
If your parents were like my mom was a hairdresser, I was attuned to hearing, because I was never a noisy child. I always listened, so I learned to be a really good listener. And I remember. Well, I remember all the stories. I remember who was seeing who. I remember who was not happy.
Yeah, that's when you hear everything.
Recipes, all of that. But I also had a pulse on the tribe, because when women came to my mother, they talked about feelings, more spiritual things, right? Than when I left the Marine Corps, I was very much her, and there was such a blend between the black culture and the Native American culture that I felt very much balanced. I doubt seriously that I would survive Vietnam had I not had those two cultures in me. Today, I ask myself, what do I want to leave? If I had to say something for my people, what I want to leave is that I was born with a basket full of space, and it got filled with things in a very half-handed way. Respect the things, right, that I didn't understand, and give room, right, for people, right, to grow and to impart to me. Mm-hmm. The courage to be wrong and open up to my weakest thing. The humility, right, that it takes, right, to look at another man and know that my strength rests in his very weakness. That I can take him, we can take another step together. This genealogy of Native American culture, right, that will die in my blood. I can't make anybody remember what it was like to sit in the sweat lodge. I can't make anybody remember what it's like if they've never been on the back of a horse and seen the vigor or the birth of a child. You know, I can't make you know those things right if you've never seen it. But what I can do is tell you about the story.
That's good, man. That's good. That's good. One more question I gotta ask.
Yes,
this
sir.
question, man, because I realized, you know what I mean, through our society, right? Technology and science, you know what I mean, wherever society good with technology and science, they always rule the world. To making gunpowder, electricity, you know what I mean, nuclear bombs now. Wherever can create those, actually rule the world, right? All right, back then, with the Native American, whatever into science and technology, or with just everything was just so spiritual.
There was vast things happening. I mean, it's wow.
Because you had a lot of tribes.
Yeah,
You said over 500 different tribes, right?
Yeah, you bring up some things, right, that it was not a tranquil survival, and it wasn't even before that. You spent some winters here in Delaware. Back in 65 and 64 and 63, the hawk used to come through Delaware hard off the Atlantic coast. Those nor'easters would be so cold, I'm telling you, snot would freeze on your nose at the bus stop. They used to have two wood stoves in the black school. You know. Stepping back even further, 1920s, early 1920s, black people, right, couldn't live. I mean, you lived on parcels of land that white people gave you. Throughout Kent County, there are a number of places called colored people's houses, colored people
In Delaware?
In Delaware. Now,
Wow.
These are old farms on the backside of the lakeside. Most of them are really pretty close to farmland and stuff like that. Let's jump back 10 years, 20 years before that. Now we're talking about the late 1800s and the turn of the century, 1900. Now we're talking about cars aren't on the road. There are no cars. All this stuff is, buggies. You know,
Trains,
what I mean?
cars. You had
now
trains.
Dover is becoming a little bit popular because now it's the capital of the state.
Yeah.
Now what's also in this state is agricultural diseases. Pesticides are coming in,
You can see
the deal side.
plant.
Now it's beginning to happen. You start to see a little bit more industrialization. Tractors come into existence. You heard before the stories of smallpox and all of that.
Yeah, I know.
Well, the new generation was STDs because the blending brought along a whole host of other problems, as well as a light breed Hispanic, or a light breed high yellow black, or a dark skinned Italian, or an Amish, looks pretty rough on the dark side. This blending that happened came with a lot of diseases, a lot of tuberculosis, a lot of issues that were medically and economically made a big difference. Schools, for a long time, they didn't want black people or people of color going to school with the white people. They had reasons. They're Donald Trumpers, but they haven't had shots. Them people right smell. Some of them even said, hey, look, they got dirt underneath their fingernails. You see, they look like they got claws. Remember that boy that got shot in Georgia behind that shit? No, this is real because they painted a culture of dark-skinned people are animalistic, beastlistic. So while you out there, Dover, acting like a thug, you're just acting like what they perceive you to be. And that's real. So, I mean, the education system and what was going on at the time, science-wise, let me tell you, I can remember sleeping with chinches, bed bugs, in 1967, 68. Oh yeah. When they bought the surplus food, they bought you them polyester blankets. Man, they was filled with all kinds of shit, roaches.
But it's like
chinches.
a second-hand.
Yeah, chinches, bed bugs, creepy critter crawlers. And when that nor'easter came through Delaware, you appreciated that shit because most of the times your wall was just strictly a board. Didn't have any drywall and insulation and all that. Townsend Chicken Factory didn't do that for you. You know, if you didn't have driver's license, you was out in the field picking beans. So technology was sparingly dispersed to the people that they wanted to be. Now, Rehoboth Beach Boardwalk, you had a whole nother life. Ocean City, you had a whole nother life. Dewey Beach, you had a whole nother life. But you go down to Georgetown or Hardscrabble or Townsend, you know, you might run into some shit. And not even, for real, I have diaries of old white people up in Wilmington that were little girls at the time, and they wrote entries in their diary about black people being marched off to Philadelphia or back down south by slave catchers. And it always wigged me out to hear that some little girl sat down actually 100 years ago and wrote this little entry about a time of my people.
That's what you see.
Yeah, and that's what was happening around Wilmington at the time. So for us to think that we're not touched by Native American culture, well, you definitely are. But I will tell you that many are, because 500 years ago when we crossed the Asiatic Peninsula, we were in quest for something. And being a nomad type people and a tribal people, right, we dispersed. Just like the white man, but we were the first. And in doing so, I want to say this, there were a number of firsts that came under that nomad umbrella. From every nation, from every continent, all feeling the spirit to go forth. It's the same spirit that makes us sit here today and have this conversation about, oh wow, take a breath. How far does my tentacles of history go? I don't want anybody to be impressed with my military career or my individuality as a Native American. I think what's even more important, right, is that as an individual, you or me or anyone else have the power, right, to reach far beyond where we sit, where we've been, even looking to where we're going, because it could be the kid, it could be the young man sitting beside me, it could be you.
It could be anybody.
The desire to go where you haven't been is just the beginning, because somebody started you on this journey. You sit here because the fact you wanted to know. And if you're interested, the Blackfoot history, you will run into a wall like most of us have, but if you had the opportunity, right, to meet some of the Lakota people and learn some of the words, Chakanta, the Lakota, the way of life, the Red Road, it's not a religion, it's a way of being.
It's a way of being.
And when you do that, it goes forth. And I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you, because
Dang, I learned something new today. It's pretty, like the first day I met you, it was pretty new. Seeing a black Native American. Never. You were my first, brand new to me. I heard about Blackfoot, but you never. It's like people just saying stuff. You know what I mean?
It's more. There's
sure.
More.
I'm sure there's.
There's here in Dover, the Cheswall community is full of a group of people called Moors. Moors, and they are of the Lenape tribe.
Wow.
My mentor, Mr. Fred Miners, would love for you to speak to him, right? Because not only is he a member of the Lenape tribe, he's a number of his family is right within Cheswold, and
right down the street.
And that is exactly where you asked me about new reservations being established. That is exactly where one of the reservations is being established.
Oh,
Branch Creek Road used to be an old Native American school and church.
Oh, wow.
And they tore it down, and you can still see the remnants there. So it's a very big part of the
Hey guys, my camera got so hot it went off on me. But we back. We at the end of this video, and Mr. Johnson, you any final word?
I'm still here, and we were just talking about what is the reason that we've actually done this? Why come here today and talk to you about something so far in the past and about a history that you've lived through? We were just talking with Alex, and I think that it's important to realize, right, that it is impossible to think about history and cultures right without realizing how much of an impact Black people and Native Americans have on each and every one of us. We can't track individually, so to track as a nation is even more difficult, but that's not nearly as important as how you act as a person. You know, how you give to the tribe around you, the tribe of human beings, the tribe of Americans if you're patriotic, the tribe of a people if you're into that that box of colors. But I mean, we have to get through this situation, and my culture has always been, if I take care of the guy on my right and my left, you know, we as a whole right get stronger. And he likewise thinks the same. I'm Lakota, I'm Blackfoot, and I value that trace in my blood. I know that we've come 500 years, but I'm looking for 500 years more, and this is not the end, this is the beginning. There's things that we've been not told. There's languages that you need to pay attention to. Look for the old ones. Hear what they have to say. Take some time. Remember, one day you're going to become the old one. You'll be the guru. You'll be the one talking about times long ago. And when you can't remember, there are no more stories to tell to your young ones. They are as dumb as a rock, and you made them that way. I'm not embarrassed to talk about my people. I'm embarrassed to talk about my people's reactions, the responsibility. We don't do this. We as a people will cease to exist from a Native American culture, and since we're all blended and one now as a race, I'm too ignorant to be afraid, and too well trained as a Marine to be depressed. Our belief is adapt, adjust, work with each other, become a team. I hope you're listening. I hope you're feeling a little bit of this conversation, right? Because we've covered some ground, and we covered some history. And it's not the cold cowboys and Western days. It's not Hollywood. This was just yesteryear, just like your tomorrows are your kids and the old ones. So let's get to it.
All right, man. You hear him. If you watch this video all the way to this point, you already know you citizen. Just go ahead, join the family. All right. See you next video.
All right.
Peace.